Hi everybody, welcome to my second video on the Pentax ME. This video is going to take a look at the camera's interface, how to load film, change batteries, type of batteries, and we're also going to look through the viewfinder towards the end of the video and take a look at what the viewfinder is showing you and telling you as you're trying to compose and take a picture. So firstly, let's take a look at lens mounting and dismounting. I'm going to use the black camera for this. And to take the lens off, there's a little button here on this side you can see next to my thumb. You push that down and you rotate it counterclockwise, about a third of a turn, and then release it. To mount the lens, you just do that in reverse. There's a little red dot right there, and there's a little red dot on the lens. Line them up, and you'll feel it seat into place, and then it'll turn freely to the right, to the clockwise. So turn it clockwise, and you'll hear it click into place. Let's listen for that click again. That's what it sounds like. And when it clicks into place, what's happened is there's a little pin right here. And when you push the button down, the pin goes in, but by default, the pin is up. So when you're rotating the lens into place, the pin is pushed down, and when it gets into place, there's a little hole in the bayonet mount that the pin clicks into, locking the lens onto the camera so that it can't fall off. Next thing we're going to do is load some film. And to load the film, you have to open up the back of the camera. So lift up the lens release knob, or the camera back release knob rather, and then you load the film into the film holder area there, the film cassette holder. Pull out the film leader, put it into these little white straws. There we go. It's best for this to switch it to 100, to just the 100 manual setting. There we go. Now, at this point, what you would do is tighten up the film cassette. And the next thing you would do is close the back of this. I'm not actually going to close the back of this because I'm going to show you what happens as you use the film. So, first thing that's going to happen is we're going to take a picture. And what I'm going to do is actually take the film cassette out of the cassette holder. So there we go, you can see the shutter. So we take a picture, the shutter fires, and then you're going to advance it, which recocks the shutter and puts the shutter leaves back into place. Take a picture. Now we're going to put this back here so you can see after you've taken the picture, then rewind that again so everything's taut like it's supposed to be. Just taking the picture. You can see it's taking up the film on the take-up spool. As the film goes, you'll know that you've done everything correctly. Watch the I'll flip this up for a little bit easier view. You can see that this is rotating counterclockwise in the direction the film's being pulled every time it takes up film on that side, letting you know that it's proceeding correctly. Now you can see that this is bubbled out right here. If the back were closed, this would be flat, and that would allow the light from the lens to focus properly. So there we go. Now after you've gone through all of your film, you need to rewind it. So if you just lift that up and try to rewind it, nothing's going to happen. All you're going to do is break your camera by trying to force it. So you push the sprocket release right down here on the bottom, underneath that sprocket, and now it can be rewound. Now bear in mind, anytime you have film in the camera and you're taking pictures, you have to keep the camera back shut. Otherwise you're going to ruin your film and not get any pictures out of it. So everything I just showed you with the camera back open is only for demonstration to convey what's happening. And anytime you're taking pictures, the film back should be shut like that. So the next thing we're going to do here is change the battery. And take out a quarter or whatever equivalently sized coin works in your country and turn counterclockwise to unscrew the battery cover. Okay, so either you'll have had 2 batteries fall out or you won't have had any and you'll need to put fresh ones in. It takes LR44, sometimes called A76. I think LR44 is the current designation for them. Batteries. These are little button cell batteries. And they have a positive side. The positive side is smooth and shiny, and the bottom side is a little bit duller. It has a plastic ring around it, so it does not have any type on it. This is going to go positive side when you're loading it down. So the little duller side without any type is facing the bottom of the camera like that. Okay? And that's because, and you can see here on the film door, there's a little horizontal line in the middle of it. You might not actually be able to see that, but there is. And that indicates that the negative touches the film cover. If there were a plus there, that would mean that these batteries go in the opposite way, but these batteries go in with the dull, no text side visible when they're loaded like this. Put the film door back on. Sometimes this part can be a little bit tricky. So what I do is I turn it counterclockwise until I feel it seat, and then I'll turn it clockwise, and that helps me prevent cross-threading. Cross-threading one of these can be disastrous because, well, there's no fixing that. You're just stuck with a battery door that's not going to function properly, and this camera needs to have the batteries in order to function. So that's unloading and loading the batteries. The flash hot shoe up here takes any standard xenon. You can see there's a little X there, red X. That indicates that it takes a xenon flash. That's the modern standard flash you can pick up at any store right now. And it will sync at 1/100th of a second, either with the 100X or the auto. And honestly, I'll tell you right now, when using this, it's easier to do the 100X because you have no control over the auto. So it might take a 1/1000th of a second exposure with the flash, which isn't going to work. You'll get a bright light on the side and then a whole bunch of darkness where the shutter curtains were. So when you're using a flash, keep it at the 100X. You can also plug in a flash, like I said, to the PC port here on the side, and that will control your flash as well. I said that in the first video. So in the first video, we took a look at this next to the Pentax K1000 and Olympus OM-2N. And we'll do that again because it bears repeating. Here it is next to the K1000, which you can see is substantially larger. The M series replaced the K series. It's larger, it's wider, it's a bit plumper, and it's substantially heavier. The M series cameras were designed to compete with the Olympus OM cameras, which you can see are about the same size and about the same width and about the same plumpness and about the same weight. This is a little bit heavier because it's got a lens on it, but they're pretty close in weight. So they're pretty good competitors for the very tiny Olympus OM cameras. Now let's take this and we're going to look through the viewfinder and we're going to talk about what you're seeing through the viewfinder. Okay, so here we are looking through the viewfinder, and on the left of the viewfinder we have a scale, and what that's telling you is the shutter speeds, 1/1000th to 8 seconds, and it's also got an indicator for over and under exposure. So right now I'm half depressing the shutter button and it tells me that the shutter speed is going to be 1/15th of a second. Now if I change the aperture to, that was at f22. If I change it to f4, that's going to tell me that the shutter speed is 1/250th of a second. So that's on the left side. On the right side there's nothing. So it's a pretty open viewfinder. The only information it's going to give you is the shutter speed. Now, what I told you before in the first video is that it's a split image viewfinder, and in the center, there we go, in the center you can see as I focus, or try to focus, that there's an in-focus portion of the image that is sliding together, and when it slides together, that's when you know that it's focused. And around that brighter portion of the image in the center, there's a series of micro prisms that help you get a little bit more fine focus in the center, and then around those microprisms, it's just ground glass. That's why it's a smoother look too. I just mentioned that it has center-weighted metering, and what that means, like I said, is that an area about like this, let's say you were looking through your camera and seeing this scene, an area about like this represents 60% of the metering data, and the rest of it represents 40%. So right now, through my video camera, I have it set to averaging metering, so the entire image is being seen as contributing equally to the data. I'm going to switch now to center weighted, and let's take a look at what that means. You should have been able to see this get a little bit lighter because this area of the video is darker than the rest of it, which was intentional. So the camera that right now in center weighted is metering this part of the scene as being an even flat 18% gray, and the rest of it as being also gray, but 40% of the data out here, of the image out here, contributes to the meter reading. 60% of what's in here does. So let's say, for instance, that you were taking an image where you had a dark center and a lighter outside area to it, such as maybe the shadow of a building or of a tree or something like that, and you had your subject standing in the shadow. Well, if you took a picture like that, it would turn out to be very dark where you were looking at the where your subject was standing. Even though it's center weighted, it would still come out a little bit underexposed. So you could compensate for that by using the exposure compensation dial. And you can see that it's 1/2, 1/4, 2x, or 4x. And if you adjust it to 2x, that means you're going to get double the exposure, quadruple the exposure. I'll show you what that means when we look through here. Okay, so you can see here it's at 1/250th, and that's at 1x. So if I go to 2x, it gives you an extra stop of light at 1/125th, and 4x is 2 extra stops of light at 1/60th. 2x, 1x, 1/2 removes a stop of light at 1/500th, and 1/4 removes 2 stops at 1/1000th. So you can use that dial as a quick way to compensate for your image exposure when taking photos in areas of contrasting light. What you would do is say, oh, well, this is darker in the center here. Let's call it a stop darker, so I'm going to change this to 2x. Or it's a little bit darker than that even. Let's change it to 4x. The other thing you could do is take 3 photos, one standard at 1x, one stop overexposed, and one that's 2 stops overexposed, and then feel confident that you have gotten the image that you want. So that's a quick tip on how to use the exposure compensation. You can use it to compensate for a single exposure, or you can use it to bracket multiple exposures quickly, up to 2 stops in each direction. You could take 5 stops worth of bracketing and then help make sure that you've gotten the correct exposure as you saw it in your mind and as you want the image to turn out. So if you have any questions, please leave them below, and I'm pretty good about responding to them fairly quickly. You can subscribe to my video down there, and that will let you know when, you can subscribe to my channel, and that will let you know when I have more film and camera related videos coming out. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'm pretty good about getting back about responding to them quickly. If you have suggestions, you can leave them in the comments too. And if I have the knowledge and the equipment to do it, I'm more than happy to film those videos for you. Please give me a thumbs up, because that lets me know I'm on the right track and that my videos are helpful to you. And one last thing, thank you guys for watching.